So thank you all for coming out for our looking back and looking forward evening. Obviously you've all had the AGM report and it's been there. It'll probably stay on the table for a bit longer just because it's nice to fill the table with some information, isn't it? But we're just going to, I'm just going to look back at some of the, very briefly, at some of the challenges, because most of the point of this evening is to look forwards, to talk about what's coming in the next season. But I think it's right just to reflect on some of the challenges that we've had over the last 12 months. And then the worship team are going to come up and we're going to give thanks to God just for, even though there's been challenges, so God has done a lot in the last 12 months as well. I mean, if the AGM report shows anything, it shows how active God has been throughout the life of this church. The life of this church isn't just a Sunday morning gathering. Every ministry has its own little bit there, and it's packed with good news of God breaking through and God's work being done, which is incredible. And something which I am going to refer to a bit later on. I had a very awkward meeting with some pastors recently, and we were talking about what do we do? What's the life of your church like? And we all talked a little bit, and then it came to Riverside, and I didn't stop talking about what we do at Riverside. And one of the pastors at the end pulled me to one side, who leads a church 3-4 times bigger than this one, and went, "You do too much as a little church, Steve, and you need to just pull back. I think you're stretching yourself too far, and you need to stop reaching out and serving the community as much." And I almost just, really? Really? We need to stop reaching out and stop? That's not the case, you know. And it's not. And what I love about those reports is most of 3/4 of the ministries, me and Liz aren't in on them. It's you. It's you, the people of the church, that are reaching out and serving each other in the communities. And I just think that's fantastic. And if there's anything that we should be taking away, is we shouldn't ever stop reaching out. We should always keep reaching out. So, some of the challenges. Last year, we shared one of the main challenges we shared at this evening last year was the attendance at gatherings was a challenge, because this time last year, people hadn't settled into a rhythm of going back out again. And I think it's safe to say we're now fully out of lockdown. It's been 12, 18 months, and I think we know now people's rhythms. We've all established a rhythm, which is great, but I think it's fair to say we've all established a new rhythm, which is not the same as what it was pre-COVID. So attendance is a challenge, but it's not the unknown challenge that we had last year. We do have ongoing challenges related to Sunday morning attendance. We haven't returned to pre-COVID numbers yet, but that's like every church in the country. I'd say about 10% are at the same level or beyond. 90% haven't hit back those numbers yet. But what do we have on a Sunday? We have on average around 70 different adults plus children every week, which is a blessing in some way, because at Dog Lane we can get out 90 chairs. And we would sit more if people would come to the front. But what's awesome is we are getting to the point where I am going to have to start saying on Sunday, can you not leave a seat next to you? Can you move down? Can you sit in the middle of the row? Can you please do that? Because actually we want to make every seat count. We want to make every engagement count as well. So the Dog Lane building is almost full, and actually people say that when your building is 3/4 full, then almost growth in numbers tends to tail off a little bit, because people walk in and go, "Oh, this is full, I'm not going to be welcomed here." Even if they do get a good welcome, it's something that they think in the back of their heads and disappear. So it's a challenge, but also there's another challenge associated, because yes, whilst we have 70 adults on average and kids, we're getting a different 40 of that 70 every Sunday. You're almost getting a regular 30 every week, and then the other 40, in most cases, weren't there the week before, and in some cases haven't been there for 2 or 3 weeks, which is great because everyone's finding their new rhythm. But the difficulty comes with, how do I build relationships? How do I establish connection? How do I build ongoing relationships off the back of a Sunday? Because there's no guarantee that people that you talk to on a Sunday are going to be here the following Sunday. And actually, for some people who are newer to the church, it can feel like a different body of Christ the following Sunday. After their first Sunday, they come and go, met 3 or 4 great people, and they come back week 2, and those 3 or 4 people aren't there, and they have to almost start again, and it feels like it's week 1 again. So that is another challenge. So it makes it harder then to feed people into relationships and feed people into midweek activities, because actually what feeds people into the midweek activities of the church? Relationship and conversation. The power of invites, the power of people going, I feel like somebody wants me there and I'll come with you. When we're not getting that regularity, it does have those challenges. But if everybody turned up every Sunday, we'd be too full. So it's, it's one hand or the other. And the other challenge we have is our Sunday worship space. As I say, we're nearly full here. But in all honesty, we don't have the resource, we don't have the manpower for Sunday morning at St George's anymore. And also, St George's Hall just doesn't meet the vision of us as a church. We talk about connecting and spending time with each other. It doesn't happen at St George's Hall. As soon as the service is over, we're cleaning up and we're out of the building. So actually, that part of that vision of building relationships and connecting to each other doesn't actually happen in that space. And it is a different worship experience. And there's many people who say, I'll come when I've got the space at St George's Hall, and then when you have the space at St George's Hall, they don't come. And noticeably, we are 10 to 20% less at St George's Hall than we are in Dog Lane. So we're paying out for a bigger space with less manpower for less people to engage with the story in the gospel of Christ. So at the moment, it doesn't feel necessarily the right fit. That's a challenge for us. I mean, the cost to be there, just to let you know, for 4 hours a week that we have for a year would now cost us nearly £12,000. And that's just for 4 hours a week. And the setup team will tell you, we enjoy setting up together. But setting up St George's Hall is a lot of hard work. And it's not just setting up St George's Hall, it's the pack down afterwards. And I think the pack down afterwards is a lot more difficult. And there are loads of other stretching moments with St George's Hall, such as when the lift doesn't work, trying to get all your equipment up the stairs. Those are interesting weeks. And when you've got less manpower, everything has a big knock-on effect. But that's not to say St George's Hall is off the table completely, and we're just reviewing it. Being honest with you, we're looking at it, we're reviewing at it, we're thinking about what comes next, because we don't want logical ideas, we don't want good ideas, we want what does God want for us as a gathering on a Sunday morning. And the easy thing to do is to just go, well, this is the problem, this is the answer, this is the solution, and we'll go and do that. And I think actually we're not called to be that type of people. The challenge is, will we resist that urge? And will we actually stop, pray about it, and see what we feel God is saying to us about our Sunday spaces? So there are some challenges, but just to tell you about St George's Hall, I know this is looking forwards, but it just feels right to talk about it. We are going to be using St George's Hall a little bit, but in a different way over the next 12 months or so. We're going to be booking one of the smaller rooms every week, as we have done. It's 25 quid a week, because that's where our kids' work happens. It's brilliant. Now, sometimes the kids, we only have a few kids, and they stay in with tweenies, or they go in the office. But when you get anything more than 4, can't do it in the space back there. They need their own space. So we have a nice space set up in St George's Hall for them, which the River Kids team take all the stuff over there, and they're really good at that. So we're going to keep renting that room in St George's Hall. But one of the things that we're definitely going to do in St George's Hall is we're going to have 3 big gatherings there over the next 12 months. Christmas, which we've got on the 11th of December, Easter, and then one in the summer. And the idea of this is it's not just going to be a church service. It's going to be more than a church service. There will be a few songs. There will be a shorter talk. There's going to be space for relationship to be built. There will be hot drinks. There will be hot food. There will be a lunch provided as well. There'll be a chance for community to be built and activities for us to grow together, because that's what we think God is calling us to as a church, to be a community of people that engages with each other and accepts people when they walk through the door. The challenge is, will we actually be prepared on a Sunday morning to come in and not have on those 3 Sundays a traditional service? There will still be worship, there will still be a talk, but it's not a service light. In fact, I'd say it's service plus, because there's so much more, and it will finish after lunch, and we will provide a hot lunch for everybody. It'll be on those Sundays where we say, bring people. This is a space to really show them who we are as a community. What is the worship like here? What is the talk like? What are we like as a group of people? What is this community all about? And then also, for those of us that are on the edges or don't get to see many people, we get to engage with each other on a Sunday as well. So as I say, we're doing 3 of those, and the first one is called the Riverside Community Christmas on the 11th of December. So please come, bring people. It's going to start at 10:30, but it will finish after lunch. Why? Because we're giving you lunch. Okay, so that's what that is. But one of the other challenges, and this is the last challenge I'm going to share over the last 12 months, is the challenge of connection. This isn't a challenge that we're just facing here at Riverside. We have had at Riverside more people reach out to Liz and myself over the last 12 months to be connecting with other people somehow relationally over the last 12 months than any of the 3.5 years that we've been here. Now that's great, but also that's obvious because for 2 years we haven't been able to connect to each other. So yes, there is that as well. But actually, as whilst it's an absolute blessing to have people say we want to connect more and we want to be more in relationship with other people, it's become a really big challenge for us. Why? Because as the country, not just here at Riverside, as the country has come out of lockdown, what's changed? People's priorities, people's expectations, and people's rhythms. And actually, all sorts of communities across the country are facing the same problem. All community groups are facing the same problem that we're facing now. I want to connect, I want to be in relationship with other people, but only when my diary says that it fits. And actually, that is not just a challenge for here at Riverside, that is a challenge for community groups across the country. People are desperate for community, but they've now opened themselves up to so many different groups and saying, oh great, so you're doing something on a Tuesday morning, don't do Tuesdays. And automatically then it becomes so you need to provide for me another space if you're going to meet my need of connection and relationship. And as you know, relationship doesn't work that way. It works 2 ways. And with all the best will in the world, we can't be open 24/7. We can't. And actually, and as I said earlier, we are actually doing more as a church, and this door is open here more than some of the churches that are 2 or 3 times the size that we are. There are more opportunities for connection here than some of the pastors I've been talking to have in their churches. So the challenge is, will we be prepared to stick by the opportunities that we have? And will we accept them? We do have life groups, but they have a certain rhythm. We do have a Tuesday morning, which is a great space. We do have the discipleship groups on a Tuesday evening that run, that we do the courses on a Tuesday evening, and then we run it the following, we start one in January on a Thursday day, and we do it Thursday day, and then we do it Tuesday evening. And actually those that have come along to those, not only have had a great time in discussion together, but I've seen relationship be built at them, which has extended beyond that discipleship group. Brilliant. That's what they're there for. But that's because those people have made the time to come to those spaces that we have. We are seeing such fruit when people are saying, I will commit and I will make space in the spaces that you're creating for us. The challenge is, will we be prepared to not just go, well, my diary dictates everything? Because as I say, Liz and I could end up, and we have done in the last 6 to 8 months, being honest, we've overextended ourselves to try and meet that expectation for everyone else. And as a result, 5, 6 evenings a week, we don't see each other because of that. Now, that's not on for us. That's a decision that we've made. That's not anyone else's, but we've made that decision to do that. So we're going to be more intentional with time with each other, but it also means we're going to be more intentional with saying to the church, these are the ministries that we have. These are the opportunities of connection that are there. These are the places for discipleship, relationship building, and growing in God in the Bible. Will you commit to them? And when people say no, the question is why? Why come to us and say, I need connection and relationship if you're not willing to step into that space? Because there may be another thing going on behind the surface. And actually, what could be me and Liz just putting a sticking plaster on it and turning up in the short term doesn't help that person in the long term. But as I say, it's a challenge that's not just here at Riverside. This challenge is going on in community groups everywhere. The challenge is for all of us is, will we be the same people that turn up, direct people to what's going on? And when we do have things on today, yes, actually, this is a good thing to do, to connect to whoever or wherever, if it's something that meets where you are at spiritually. It's a challenge, I know, because the world pulls us in a million different directions. We all have a million different priorities. And the truth is, as I say, out of lockdown, priorities have changed. But then the other follow-up question is discipleship a priority? Is connection a priority? And is relationship with each other at Riverside a priority? Because if it is, that's what you make time for. I was always really challenged by something. A friend of mine, I quote Dan Bennett all the time. Honestly, he must get paid for royalties. Because one of the words I used in my vocabulary a lot is the word busy. I'm too busy for whatever. And Dan will come and go, you're not too busy for whatever. You've chosen what's important to you and you're doing that. And that's the truth. Busyness is what you've chosen is important to you and you've committed to it. That's what you're saying. And I'm not saying don't have a life outside Riverside, because we all need it. If life becomes just about all that we do here, and we purposely put on so much here, so you don't have to come to everything. Honestly, if I saw people turn up every day of the week here, I would be really worried for you, because there's no way everything we do on every opportunity is for you. But there will be something that meets your need. And if whatever that is, make that part of your priority for that thing that you need. But say, and this isn't me saying turn up to everything, because that's an impossibility, and I wouldn't want that for anybody. There is a life outside of the church, and if we're not present in the communities, in our streets, in our families, in our workplaces, because we're always at church, that's another problem as well. Okay? And we can't be that people either. It's about balance. But it is also about saying, if I'm intentional about community and relationship, I will make time for it. So those are the challenges that we've had. But as I say, we have seen fruit and God break through in so many areas over the last 12 months. We've seen God provide for Liz and myself and for this church physically, spiritually and emotionally. We've had the privilege of walking with people who have overcome some incredible personal challenges and experienced breakthrough for things that they've carried for years. And it would be wrong for me to share those people and what they are, but that's incredible. I've seen the comfort of God played out in people's lives, and I've seen them in turn, in their discomfort and sadness, comfort others. That's incredible. That's the body of Christ at work there. I've seen wisdom and care and provision, not just from the leaders of the church, but from all people of the church. I've turned around and found out pastoral conversations were happening all over the place. Why? Because we're a church that cares for each other. And you're not just dependent on me and Liz to have those conversations. And I'm so thankful for it. We need to keep having those moments, because that's where the God breakthrough is, when we have those personal moments of connection with each other and God. As I say, we're going to be looking forwards now for the rest of this evening, and I'd love to say there's loads to share with you. And whilst there is loads of detail to share with you about what we're going to be looking at for the next 12 months, there's not a lot of stuff that's going to happen. It'll make sense as we're going to talk about it. But I mentioned in the AGM report that Liz and I have now been here 3.5 years. We're over that now, and believe it or not, Liz and I are now the second longest serving pastors at Riverside. And Riverside in January will be entering its 30th year. 30 years of Riverside, that's amazing. 30 years of being a presence in this community. And yet, it still feels really quite new for Liz and I know I say this quite a lot, but yes, 2 years we're in lockdown. 2 years we saw saw you on camera, or you saw us on camera. I had a great relationship with a little black dot on a tripod. And so actually, whilst we've been here over 3.5 years, we still, in the majority of our time here, has not been in person. And I just find that a very strange and surreal place to be in. And I know I said it in the AGM report, but I would have hoped, after being here nearly 4 years, for us to be in our second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, maybe even fifth chapter, but in reality we're not. We're probably still in chapter 2, because lockdown did just, well, actually we probably are, just lockdown was an unexpected chapter, is the truth of it, and it went on a lot longer. One of those chapters in books that you think, I've had enough of this book, and you want to chuck it over your shoulder. But despite that happening, what has happened throughout that time? We have been able to launch New Life Groups. We've run discipleship courses which have set people free. The community drop-in has started and developed. We've opened and closed a community cafe in the course of 2 years. And Christmas on the Road has engaged hundreds of people, amongst other things, over the last 2.5 years. That's a lot to have started in such a short space of time, actually. Generally, churches only do one new thing a year. We're on for about 3, and we have been for the last 3 years, even in lockdown. That's been intentional from Liz and myself and from us as a leadership. Why? Because we believe looking out, no matter what happens in the community needs to see that we are the body of Christ and we are reaching out, we are open and we are there for them. That door should be open more, and actually we should be available to our town, to our communities and to each other. That's what Jesus was, and that's what the body of Christ should be doing. We have been intentional in trying to say to not only to you, but to Bewdley and beyond, that Jesus is for them, Jesus is open to them, and we're going to keep reaching and engaging in different ways. And the thing is with that, some things will work and some things really won't. And that's okay. That doesn't mean anything was wrong. I'd rather we were a church that said, we're going to try this, and we're going to keep doing it to see if this really engages with people. And then after 8 months go, yeah, this really is not, people are not interested, you know. But at least we can say we tried to reach in that way. Some things have stuck and some things haven't. But no one can say Riverside has stopped reaching over the last 3.5 years. No matter what's happened in the world, we have kept reaching. And I believe no matter what happens moving forward, we need to keep reaching. We need to keep reaching. We need to keep our doors open, and we need to keep saying to the community out there, we are not about a little gathering in here, that we are for you. I mean, and I think people are starting to get that now. The fact that we went live on Tuesday with 80 hampers, and before the video went live at 2 o'clock, the community had got in touch with me to have half of those hampers, meant that the community out there know we are a church that's for them, which is brilliant. And I've got to be honest with you, 3 years, was it 2 years ago we started hampers, or 3? I can't remember. 2 years ago. This is the 3rd set. The first year we did it, none of the agencies wanted to know. They're like, why are you doing this? Who are you? What's the catch? What do we have to pay? What do we have to do? Now they're just like, it's you, yes, brilliant, we were talking about you. And it's brilliant, they're so much open to us than they were before. Why? Because we've kept reaching. We didn't just turn up once, we persisted and we kept reaching. We started the drop-in over a year ago on a Tuesday morning, and for literally 3 months, 2 people came every week. That was it, and I'm from church. 3 months, every Tuesday. 2 people came, and me and Liz and Jackie and the team were like, what are we doing? The door's open, we're freezing, no one's even coming in. And we talked to each other, and actually we had a lovely time getting to know and chat to each other as well. But we had lots of questions about what are we doing and why are we doing it. But we persisted in doing it. We believed in keeping that door open for the community, and here we are a year later, and between 20 and 40 people are coming through that door on a Tuesday morning. And they're not just church folk, Riverside folk. It's a blend of the community and Riverside together, doing life together, growing relationships, building bridges, having conversations, and in some cases asking some really excellent questions about faith where you feel completely out of your depth. And it's not just come and chat to the pastor. In fact, when I do have the time to be in there, I generally mull around the kitchen, because it's beautiful to see the people of Riverside just doing life with the people of Bewdley. It's fantastic to see. It would have been so easy after 3 months to go, no one's coming, so we're going to close the door. But actually we felt it was the right thing to keep making that time and to keep that door open. We believed God was asking to persist, and we did it. But it was in conversation that I had with someone from the community in the drop-in that really stuck with me. And I've got to be honest with you, it really rocked me. Someone new had come to the drop-in, and I'd saw them the week previously, and I hadn't chatted to them, and I saw them the following week, so I went over and took over my hot drink and sat with them when I was chatting. And they said to me, this drop-in is exactly what I needed. I needed someone to talk to. I needed somewhere that was going to make me feel like I was worth talking to. And these people have been really welcoming to me. I said, oh, that's brilliant. I'm so pleased. Are you new to the area? Because we've been open for months. And they said, no. I've lived here for years, and I've walked past that door every time it was open for months, and I haven't come in. So I asked why. And this is what really, really just stuck with me. They said, and I've put it in bold on here, I wanted to see that it would stay open. I've seen Riverside come and do things, and as quickly as they do it, they've disappeared. I wanted to know and see that this was going to stay open before I walked in. Now, I'm not going to argue whether that's true or not. That's a perception that person had, whether that was true or not. And if that one person has that perception of what Riverside does, chances are other people in the community will have as well. Great when we show up, but rare that we kept turning up. And that really spoke to me. And actually one of the things that we've talked about long and hard and as elders is, should we keep doing some things? And some things we've said, yeah. And actually I'm really pleased that we felt it's right to keep doing things, because I think that's speaking to the community that we are going to still be here. We are still going to turn up. And we are going to be a church that keeps showing up for each other and this community. And I've over the last few months, I've tried to reflect, and I've asked questions of where this perception in the community might have come from. I've asked questions, I've listened to stories of Riverside's past. And one of the things that I've found over the last 30 years is there's lots of stories of new things starting. There are lots of stories about, do you remember the time when we did this? And do you remember the time when we did that? And do you remember the time we did that? And a lot of those things, do you remember when? Those things no longer are in existence. And when you ask why, they're like, well, they just tailed off. And actually, is it that we have been great at starting new things? And one thing we are good at Riverside, we're passionate and we get excited and we turn and go, yeah, this is brilliant, this is new. And then when it's no longer new, we look for something else new and try to go, let's go and start something else new. I need that new buzz, and we move something else. But we've still got this one thing going over here. And so that still tries to continue, and we start something new, and so we put our attention over here, and this struggles on, and this slowly dies away, and then suddenly this is no longer new, so we start something new over here. And the truth is, people probably needed the thing we started in the first place. And there's loads of things which we started, and people said, we did this like 15 years ago. But that's because we never persisted with it. We moved into the next new thing. I say, so there's that perception that we start lots of things, but we rarely follow through on it because we start another new one. And whenever we start, and everyone's got a great reputation of it, we love it when Riverside does something because this happened, and there's so many great stories. But they're almost cut short before and I met Jesus. I met each other, I met community, but they're always just stuck short of, and I met Jesus. And I wonder, is that because we weren't persistent in keeping on turning up in those things? We had a ministry leaders team meeting, when was it? 2 months ago? Do you remember it, wasn't it? I don't remember. And I shared some of this with the ministry leaders, those people that are leading a ministry. Go, what do you think? Am I crazy? You know, is this where we are? And there was a real sense in that meeting that actually there was 2 words that I shared, and the room really agreed with me that we need to be a people who are persistent and consistent. And that's what Bewdley needs right now. And that's what we need in each other. To be a people who will be persistent with each other and with this community. And to be a people that are consistent with each other and this community. They're not glamorous words. I'd love to share something really glamorous with you, but persistence and consistency really aren't. But actually, if we are to be a church that's Christ-centred, if we are to be a church that cares for each other, a church that reaches with compassion, and a church that connects to each other, we need to be persistent and keep turning up. We need to be persistent and keep showing love, no matter what people have said to us. Persistent in seeking God for breakthrough, even if He doesn't answer that prayer the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the 50th time. And we need to be consistent in praying. We can all turn up to pray once as a one-off prayer meeting, but will we be prepared to turn up and pray consistently and persistently? And actually, this wasn't on my notes to share, but just something that's really on my heart today is the Tuesday morning prayer group. It's 7:30. It's not glamorous. And there are 5 of us that are regular. Mike is a regular. Jeff, regular. Sarah started to become regular. Tim's become regular. Someone from Cornerstone who goes to Stourport Baptist has become regular. But actually what's happened is through the persistency of turn up and consistent in turn up, we're not only praying for each other, but our relationships and trust with each other has grown. The number of pictures that have been shared in that Tuesday morning group is phenomenal. And not these big life-changing pictures, but pictures that are literally encouraging and holding each other up in that day. That's amazing. How has that happened? We've been persistent in turning up every Tuesday morning at 7:30. And we've been consistent in that. And even when I couldn't do it because of my surgery, they kept doing it. Why? Because it's right to pray together, and it mattered. There's a verse that I shared with the ministry a couple of weeks ago, and we had an elders' day in the summer. We had spent a day in conversation and prayer together. And this verse is one that we just can't seem to get away from as a leadership, as a church right now. And this verse is Hosea 10:12. And we really believe this is a verse for this season for us as a church. Sow righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up your unplowed ground. For it's time to seek the Lord, until he comes and showers his righteousness on you. This is the season that we're walking into right now. Sow righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up your unplowed ground, for it's time to seek the Lord until he comes and showers his righteousness on you. We believe that this is a season where instead of launching 100 new things, we're going to stop and we're going to pause. We're going to take a breather. We're going to focus on being persistent and consistent with what we're doing as a church. Because what we're doing as a church right now is reaching out to people in this community, is growing relationships, is leading people closer to Jesus, and is growing in prayer and discipleship. That's who we are as a church. And if we start chucking in more things into it, some of that's going to go. Can't do everything. And we have to be persistent and consistent. We believe through these verses and our prayer and conversations together as a leadership that actually this is a season where we don't just need to pause and take a breather to be persistent and consistent, but we need to dig in together. We need to be a people prepared together to dig up our unploughed ground. And again, digging is not a glamorous job. This is the most unglamorous looking forward vision meeting you'll ever be to. Okay? But this is a time where we need to dig in together. If we are honestly going to prepare the fields for the harvest. If you don't dig the field, you can't plant the seeds and you'll never see the harvest. Digging is hard work and requires us to keep turning up and to do what needs to be done. And this town, our streets, our communities, our families, don't they deserve that? To know Jesus a little bit more? But also not only to keep doing that, but I think there's stuff in our lives that we need to dig into as well. So we're going to pause and we're going to take some time to dig in together. And as I say, I shared that with the ministry leaders and they were like, yeah, completely. It was a really powerful meeting actually. When I sat with the ministry leaders and shared this, it was really encouraging for me. But actually, we think that this is a season that's not just for us as a church, but we think that this is something that is going on across the country as well. There have been numerous words spoken in the Western world at this time by different church leaders, by different people who've heard God and shared them, that this is not only a season where there'll be a sifting in the church, but there'll be a season of shaking in the world. And if the church, the people of God, are not prepared to dig in, we're going to be shaken as well. A shaking where the things of this world will greatly shift. But that shaking will also affect the church worldwide. So if we don't make time to persist, and if we're not consistent, and if we don't make time to dig into God too, individually and as a body of Christ together, our roots could be shaken by this too. We need to be a people who are digging in. So if we're going to sow the seeds of the kingdom of God effectively, especially in the coming seasons of shaking and sifting, our ground needs to be dug and our ground needs to be ready. If the ground isn't ploughed when we sow, you'll never see the fruits of unfailing love in our lives as a church. And I want to see that. I want to see in my life, your life, and I want to see out in our streets and our communities, the fruit of God's unfailing love. Isn't that fruit that you want to see? Isn't that fruit that you get excited by? Fruit that knows no bounds. Fruit that actually sets people free from the cycles that they fall into. That's what I want to see. So we need to be, as a response to that, what does it tell us to do? It tells us to seek the Lord individually and together, to break up that unploughed ground together. It's an unglamorous job, but if you don't make time for it, or if only the few do it, it takes longer. We have to dig in, persist, and be consistent. So what does this mean? It means in practical terms, it means we're going to persist with all the ministries that we're running, And we're going to seek to be consistent with ensuring that they're run well and they keep reaching continually. We're going to be pushing small groups again and again and again. Across England at the moment, average life group attendance rate is at 30%, which is an all-time low across the country, especially at a time where people want connection more than ever before. Here at Riverside, we're sitting at 40% of people are attached to a small group in some way. That's great, because we're above national average. You could go, that's great. What about the 60% who aren't? Because I don't know about you, but I get encouraged by a Sunday morning gathering, and I worship God, and I get filled by the Holy Spirit. I get transformed in relationship and prayer and reading the Bible with other Christians. Iron sharpens iron. That happens in small groups. It happens face to face. Jesus' most impactful ministries happened where? Around a table. So we will be pushing small groups again and again and again. So there's also a question, and this is one that I'm going to keep asking, and I need to actually get better at myself. Are we engaging with people outside of Riverside? Or are we just engaging with Riverside? Like I said earlier, we do need to be persistent and consistent, but if all we do is gather as Riverside, we will never reach anybody for the kingdom of God and the love of God, because the people who need it aren't in the building. They're out there. Are we making time to show people the unfading love of God? So we need to almost be walking that tightrope and that balancing act, and a lot of the messages you're going to hear on Sundays over the next 12 months are about those two areas. I'm going to stop talking for a bit now. You've heard enough of my voice. I do have more to share, but one of the key things that we do need to persist and be consistent in is how we care. And so I tasked Liz as part of her role to look at care as a church. So Liz is going to come up and share with how are we going to persist and be consistent with care. There you go, Liz. Yeah, I'll go. Sure.
Okay, so Steve has said a lot already about we as church together, and a big part of that is connecting with each other. We've said that. It's supporting one another. It's being church. It's being those images that we see Paul unpacking of being the body together, looking after the different parts, looking out for each other. And what I'm going to share now, please do not think that is not important, because that is the key. The key is that we are all church. We are all in this together. It's not just about Steve and I or the elders. It's about us being the body together. But something that we've put some work into, that we've prayed into, and actually a lot of this we wanted to do just as COVID hit, and we'd got the bare bones of this ready February 2020, and March 2020 happened, and we never want to think of that month ever again, do we? As words came into our vocabulary that we never thought we'd ever use or didn't know what they meant at that time. So this, in a sense, has been a long time coming, but hopefully just helps us all a little bit on how we see care within Riverside. So Steve has already talked on our small group environments, things like life groups, things like Wednesday church, things like the drop-in on a Tuesday, the Tuesday or Thursday when we do the discipleship courses, the discipleship expressions that we're trying to do once a month with the breakfasts. It might be the service team that you're a part of, maybe kids, worship, whatever that environment is that you serve as well. That's also another expression of small group where relationship can be built. And in the majority of those environments, there is an obvious leader or leaders that kind of oversee it, or you would know of as the life group leader, or like Wednesday church with Mike and Jan, or the team that lead Tuesday mornings. Whatever that environment, you'd see there's a leader there. And these small group environments, or these that I've just, all those that I've just kind of mentioned, that's a great place for relationship to happen, or if care is needed of a greater magnitude or of more intensity, that's a great place for it to happen. And that does happen so much, and it's amazing for us to see that and hear from the different leaders that they're coming alongside, or other people within that environment are coming alongside other people that need that extra bit of support or extra care for a situation or a circumstance that's going on. But sometimes care is needed that is more intense, that's bigger maybe than what a life group leader can provide, or whatever leader perhaps has come to mind in some of those environments. And that's where what we're calling the Care Connect team comes into place. So the Care Connect team is made up of all the leaders of the ministries, and the majority of them, I think I've spoken to. There's still a couple that I haven't quite got to yet, and we gathered together, I can't even remember when that was, it feels a lifetime ago, I think it was September time, just to talk on this and how we want to develop this idea. But not only are those leaders of the ministries involved and the life group leaders involved, we've got some other key people within the church that we really see they've got a great gift for coming alongside people, for caring for people, that have come into that as well. And at some point we'll do a proper full list, so you know kind of these are the people that are involved in the Care Connect team. But because we haven't quite got there in getting all the information out, this is more just a headline, so you've got an idea that if you're hearing this term, Riverside Care Connect team, you know what we're talking about. And the idea with this team is that they are there to support care that might already be given. They might be perhaps more of a specialist or have experienced something themselves that might really help someone that's going through a particular circumstance or situation. It might be that someone who needs care isn't within one of these small group environments, like Steve said. Not everyone is in a life group in the church. There might be in other groups, but there are still people in Riverside that all those things I've listed, they wouldn't be able to tick any of them off as being something they're connected to. So there are people not within those structures that might need that more intensive support. And what this team will do is they, obviously in conjunction with kind of any other leaders or however that care is put forward, and I'll come on to that in a minute, they are there just to stand with people, to care for people. So we are being the body together, that it isn't just falling on one or two, but that we are sharing the care for one another. It also means we might be able to signpost easier to different organisations or other networks that where more professional support or help might be needed, and we're then more ready to do that. Or, as I say, if someone more qualified is needed. That doesn't mean we don't still care and support, it just means there's someone else there on the journey. So what does this mean for us as a church? It means we keep doing what we're doing. We keep looking out for one another. We keep supporting one another. We keep building relationships together. What it also means is if you think someone, through conversation, just needs a bit more support, or something comes up that you think, I'm praying for you on that, I can support you, but I think you might need something a bit more than what I can give, then by all means say that to that person and come and let us know. Come and let myself or Steve know, or one of the elders, whoever kind of is most readily available, and we can look at what support we can put in there. Doesn't mean you can't, it just means for whatever reason something else is needed. We all in life, sat here now, can think of times where we've perhaps wanted to help someone, but for whatever reason just can't. It might be time, it might be stuff that's going on in our own lives, it might be an issue someone's got, hit something in us that we've gone through, and we think, I can't deal with that, it needs someone else. I'm still going to walk with them, but it needs someone else. And so we're just trying to put this layer in place, as it were, that means no one needs to feel like they're shouldering it all themselves in helping or supporting someone. So once we're made aware of it, obviously we can talk with you or with the person involved about who might best be placed. We can talk with the Care Connect team and see any individuals that might come to mind from that can step in there, as well as maybe their life group leader, or Mike and Jan with Wednesday Church, or whatever other environment we're talking about that they're connected to as well. Now, obviously, there might be some situations that are more serious. That means kind of Steve or myself or one of the elders have to step in if it is something, say, safeguarding or anything more serious like that. But I think the important thing to say is, this isn't to say any of us don't want to care, it's just making sure we're giving the right care, the right support, that people don't feel overburdened in this, and we share the load. And also accountability is huge, isn't it? Steve and I would love to be able to sit down with everyone one-to-one, as the elders would as well, but time doesn't allow that, and to know people are being cared for is great, but it also means Steve and I can do our job, which is also caring for you if you are caring for someone as well, because it does take a toll. It is hard work. Dependent on the situation, it may not be short term, it might be long term, and so we want to make sure we're doing the best job we can as well in that. I think that's it. But as I say, later on we'll probably do something more in terms of explaining exactly who's on the team. So if suddenly something happens and you're like, oh, how would you fancy meeting up with so-and-so, or so-and-so coming and helping you? You're not sat there going, why have you picked that? You know, it makes a bit more sense. So yeah, we'll do that later on, but just to give you a heads up on that.
That's great. In fact, one of the things I want to do, but I haven't told the Care Connect team this yet, is I want to get them up on a Sunday, introduce them to the church, and we can all pray for them as a bit of commissioning, and you can all see them. But then you just know that Sunday there'll be three going, I don't want to be prayed for, and they won't come. So I might just spring it on everybody one Sunday. I haven't decided yet. But there we go. So we want to make sure, if we are going to say we're a church that cares, that everyone does get cared for. And actually, Liz and I can't do it all, and we all do a great job in trying to reach out to as many as we can. But then there's so many people that I've talked to over the last 6 to 12 months who are carrying a lot themselves. And actually, it's our job to help carry that for them too. So as part of this as well, some people go, oh, digging into God, seeking God, that's going to be, what's that then? What do we do? It's all very well you're saying that, Steve, but what are we going to do? Well, Liz and I, and this came out of the ministry leaders meeting actually, we want to help you and gather the church in this season to be digging in. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to create some digging in spaces in both January and February where we can dig in together, we can seek God together, but so we can also equip you for those people that don't feel that confident in their time with God themselves. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be 1 week, the 3rd week of January and the 3rd week of February. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to run a programme that goes on all week. And what it'll be is it'll be something will happen on one evening, and then the next day, for those people that come in the evening but are free in the day, it'll be the same thing again the next day in the day. And then we'll do something on an evening, and then we'll run the same thing the following day in the day. So those people that can make evenings, great. Those people that can only make daytimes, great. And we are going to be looking at how we can be helping parents, if we can maybe get sort of something going on in the back room, and parents can bring their children down, and we can have that going as well, because we understand it's difficult, and we want to make sure we create as many spaces as we can to help people. Some of these will be just prayer gatherings. Some of them will be worship gatherings. Some of them will be communion sessions. Some of them, as I say, will be equipping sessions. Liz and I are going to run a session in January of how do you dig into the Bible? How do you actually have that personal relationship with the Word? And for those people that aren't sure how to literally go beyond just reading their Bible, we're going to run some equipping. In February, we're going to run some discipleship spaces on how do you actually abide with God. And we're going to look at some of the spiritual disciplines. Fasting, serving, giving, solitude. All the things that are very unglamorous, that actually, though, are very good for our souls and our relationship with God's in helping us to dig in. These often aren't things that we talk about on a Sunday morning, because on Sunday you want to be pointing the way to Jesus for as many people as possible. And you don't get a space to do it, so we're going to create some spaces where we can equip and dig in together. We're going to release a digging in calendar, and we're going to give it out probably towards the end of December, so you've all got it. So you can see what that programme is in January, you can see what that programme is in February, and you can see where you can connect and come and dig in with us. It won't all be equipping. Some of it will be, come and pray with us. And then the only agenda is we've got to come and we've got to pray. We have to seek God solo and together. It's not glamorous, but it's going to be essential for us in the coming seasons. If we aren't a people who are willing to dig in together, will we ever see the fruits that God has for us in this community? I don't think you will, being honest. Right now, interesting, when we came to here at Riverside 3.5 years ago, the Newcastle church, Newcastle Ealing, was without a pastor, and they've had a really rough time, and they've just moved into a bingo hall. And it's an amazing, massive building, but the church itself had gone through such a difficult time, and it had dwindled to just a handful of people. And the minister that came into there, John Bullock, and his wife Debbie, just said, right, well, if the only thing that's going to change this around is God. And so they instigated, in the first year, we're going to pray 5 days a week. In the second year, they prayed 6 days a week. In that time, they've seen more breakthrough in their church than ever before. And those prayer meetings haven't been 50, 60, 70 people. They've been 2 or 3, but they've been persistent and consistent, and they're now seeing the breakthrough in their community. Why? Because they refused to do anything without praying and seeking God first. And they made sure it's a priority, not just for them as a leadership, but for them as a church. Will we do the same? So there's that. So that digging in calendar is coming out end of December. You will all see it. There is another word that I've already said a few times, and I'm going to say it again. We need to be a people of invite, not just turning up. Because actually a lot of the stuff is for us, but it's even better if you bring someone with you. Isn't Jesus actually open for everybody? And have you ever sat there? I've sat there some Sundays going, oh, it'd be great if such and such a person heard this. And then God said to me, well, why didn't you ask them to come? It's like, yeah. Instead of me going, why haven't they heard it? It's why. And it's not just talking about people from our families and our streets and our communities that need to know about Jesus. What about if it's someone that hasn't been to church in a couple of weeks? And saying, actually, the thing that might be stopping them coming through the door is they've been gone for so many weeks, they just don't know how to walk back through the door themselves. What if it's an invite from you to get them back through the door? If we're not going to be a people of invite, how are people going to walk in and engage with all the stuff that's going on by chance? That's not what Jesus did. He walked towards people and says, come with me. He didn't point them and say, go over there. That's what you need. We need to be a people of invite. And that's going to be a language word that I'm pushing a lot over the next 12 months as well. And then I've got one more thing to share, and I can't believe it, we are going to be done by 8:30, and that's it. As much as I've said we're not going to do anything new, we are going to do one thing new. And I've saved it till the end, because I want you to leave with the thought of, we're not just sitting back and being content with we're full on a Sunday mornings. Because right now, is there a space where people who are not Christian at all, have no form of Christian faith, if they walk through the door on a Sunday morning as it stands, how would they feel? I come from a very non-Christian background, and it's a question that I'm always asking myself. And I've got to be honest, walking into a full church, singing a whole bunch of songs really loudly that I don't know, but everyone else does, can be a little scary. So we need to create a space where we can bring people who might not be churched up to, or even have any history in church. So basically we're going to start, and this might address some of our spacing problems on a Sunday. We're just going to try it, first of all, for 4 months. But I do think I need to be persistent and consistent with it. So I say it now, but that's it. And basically on the last Sunday of every month, we're going to do what's going to be called Cafe Church, even though I hate the name and I want to come up with a better name for it. But at 5 o'clock on the last Sunday of every month, we're going to do a service here. It's going to be around round tables. It's going to have worship, but worship's not going to be songs. The worship will literally be on your table. What good things are in your life? Great. Can somebody give thanks to God for that's going on in your life? Just conversational. The talk will be the exact same talk as Sunday morning, just shorter. It's not an extra. There's no extra work going into this. So if you come on Sunday morning, don't come on Sunday evening thinking it's going to be something completely different. It's exactly what Sunday morning is, just much more accessible, much more conversational, and much more shorter. This is not an extra. This is something that's instead of. So I want to say, if you're going to come on a Sunday evening once a month to this, don't come on a Sunday morning. Because it's going to be exactly the same as what you've got Sunday morning. There's going to be no extra thing there. But worship will be done conversationally in prayer. The talk will be shorter. Why will the talk be shorter? Because the Bible verses and some of the talk notes will be on the table for people around the tables to look at and discuss themselves. or it's also a space where anybody on a table can come and ask questions about, what's this all about? Why are you talking about this? And hear from other Christians, what is it we're talking about? And then we're going to end in prayer. There'll be hot drinks, there'll be biscuits. It's simple church for anybody that has no church background. But it might also solve a Sunday morning issue, because some of you might be sitting there going, Steve, I hate listening to a 30-minute talk, and I'd much rather hear a 5-minute talk and talk about it with other Christians. Brilliant! Come along, because that's what it's going to be. So that we're going to run that, as I say, on the last Sunday for a period of time in the new year. Now that may take off, and it may become something that we end up doing more regularly. Brilliant, because that may also solve the space issue on a Sunday morning, because say 30 people from Sunday morning don't come on a Sunday morning but go to that Sunday, we've got 30 more seats free here on a Sunday morning as well. So it solves the space issue, but it also is in line with the vision of the church, creates a space that's Christ-centred, cares for people, connects with people, and allows us to reach with compassion and invite people into a space where they might not feel comfortable otherwise. But again, that will rise and fall on what word? Invite. If you don't invite somebody, then what's the point? For me, if you're going to bring a new Christian or somebody who doesn't even know anything about Jesus, that's a fantastic space to bring them to. Because they literally can just come into a non-threatening environment going, what's this all about? Or even just hear other Christians talking about the Bible together. It might take weeks before they actually ask a question, but they've heard other people talk about the questions and gives them a space to do it there. So as I say, this isn't an extra. This isn't come to both. If you're going to come to the evening one, don't come in the morning. Really commit to it and see how you feel about it. So it's going to be the last Sunday of the month, 5 o'clock, it'll be done by 6. So I'd say that's the time frame, 6 at the latest, it'll be done by. So, invite, bring people, dig in, persistent, consistent, and reach. If you're going to hear any 5 words, if you can't remember any of the detail, remember those things. Reach. Let's keep reaching. Be persistent. Be consistent. Dig in and invite people. That's the season that we're moving into. It's not glamorous, but I really believe we're going to see the fruit of our unfailing love of our God if we do this and how we do this. And for those that do walk with us on this, I believe we'll really see this.